Welcome back to the Special Education Network. Today I am here with my co-host, Claire Wright.
Hi. Hailey and I are so excited today to be reporting on a topic that's very near and dear to our hearts. It's the juvenile justice system and education for special needs students. Today, we are going to talk to you viewers about some of the issues facing special needs students in the JJS and what they need, current conditions. We're also going to be looking at possible changes for the future and what is required under IDEA for these special needs students in the JJS. Stay tuned.
All right, and before we begin, we want to go over a few acronyms since there's a lot of legal jargon and just a lot of verbiage in special ed that can be hard to keep up with sometimes. So IDEA stands for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. FAPE stands for Free and Appropriate Public Education.
Let me add in one more for you, Hailey. The JJS is the Juvenile Justice System. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004 has exponentially helped students with disabilities receive better education services. IDEA has 6 main parts: free appropriate public education, appropriate and non-discriminatory evaluation, individualized education programs, least restrictive environments, parent and student participation, and procedural safeguards. Something that's really important about IDEA is the promise of a free, appropriate public education to all students. This includes both students with disabilities and those without disabilities. However, students with disabilities need more services and they require more things in order to meet the statutes and the demands of IDEA. Hailey, let me tell you something else really important. The FAPE under IDEA is not only for students in the public education setting, but it also covers students in the JJS, the Juvenile Justice System. So that is super important, and that is why we're talking about it today, is because a lot of students in the JJS are not receiving this FAPE.
So Claire, what are the current conditions for students with disabilities who are currently in the juvenile justice system?
Okay, Hailey, let me tell you a couple of these startling facts that I have. One says that 70% of children in the juvenile justice system have educational disabilities, the vast majority of them having emotional disturbance. Many students go into the JJS without even knowing that they have a disability, and then they are then identified within the JJS. And an alarming fact that goes along with this is that chemical dependency or substance abuse issues are also present along with these disabilities.
And Claire, you have a story to tell us, right, that kind of represents this school to prison pipeline.
Yes. Hailey, let me read this for you. It says, so it's an article called Pipeline to Prison, How the Juvenile Justice System Fails Special Education Students. This article tells the story of an adolescent caught within the school to prison pipeline. Tony Jennings was 16 when he was arrested and entered the JJS for a felony. Jennings qualified for special education services, but Jennings says that while in the JJS, he did not attend classes. He says that he played basketball, watched TV, and basically just stayed to himself. Students like Jennings deserve more than just a new placement after a felony. The article states that incarcerated juveniles have the same educational rights as those outside. 5 hours of instruction a day that meet their learning needs, including special education. However, because of the current conditions within the JJS for students with disabilities, Jennings has now exited his high school years and is still illiterate. Hailey, this is just one of the startling stories, and this was found in Mississippi, of students who enter the JJS and they are not receiving the free, appropriate public education that they are promised under IDEA, and I think that that deserves some looking into, and we are going to look into that today. Hailey's going to offer us some awesome ideas of how we can change these facts. But Hailey, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What is FAPE when it comes down to
That is such a good question, especially for people who aren't familiar with special education. So there are certain services under FAPE that students are entitled to, and it's important that parents know about these. These services include specific psychological services, such as therapy and therapeutic recreation, social work services, counseling services, and rehabilitation counseling. And FAPE has to follow all the procedures outlined in IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that support the rights of youth in custody to receive an education. And Claire, according to the Model Juvenile Court Act of 1998, the court is actually have certain responsibilities for these students. They are responsible for the care, protection, and wholesome moral, mental, and physical development of children coming within its provisions. So when you think about it, the court has a lot of responsibility on their shoulders for how they're going to make sure these kids are entitled to FAPE.
Wow. Viewers, we are now going to have a little special. Hailey is going to tell us about one of the court cases that kind of highlights some of the issues in the JJS with students with disabilities. Hailey?
Yeah, Claire. So in 2006, a local education agency, a school district in Washington, D.C. came under fire because they were sued for not appropriately providing an education for a student who was incarcerated. However, this 2006 decision, it was reversed by the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals because prison officials were actually not allowing the local education agency to come inside the prison. And because of this, prison officials were blocking the student from receiving an education. So eventually the student still was able to be compensated for his education, but it came down to the fact that the court was not allowing this child to have access to FAPE.
Wow. So Hailey, tell our viewers today, what are some possible changes that can be made within the JJS for students with disabilities?
Yeah, for sure, Claire. So the first is that of placement. A lot of students are placed in large facilities without access to education, whereas students that have these educational and mental health deficits, they could be placed in smaller juvenile detention facilities where their health and educational needs can be met. And this can occur when the student has initial contact with the juvenile court system. And this can fall upon the hands of authorities, judges, and school personnel. Early intervention is also key to helping to fight early and long-term juvenile delinquency. And a lot of people wonder, what even is early intervention? Early intervention requires early assessment and evaluations. And this is futile in identifying students that have disabilities. The earlier on they're identified, the earlier they'll receive help, the less likely they are to drop out of school or be suspended and enter the system.
I love that. Hailey, I just wanted to go in now. So we're based out of Utah. What are some things that Utah is doing to help the students with disabilities in the juvenile justice system?
That's a great question, especially for our communities. One local community in the Granite School District is called YES, the Youth Educational Support School. What that is it's a school that provides a safe, respectful, and nurturing learning environment for students to develop the necessary academic, technological, and social skills to be successful and contributing members of this 21st century society. And that sounds like a lot, but what YES is centered around is that every child can succeed. And it's because of this that YES provides youth with meaningful and challenging curriculum. So students are sent to receive this instruction. They're referred by their schools and that type of thing. And they can just learn the vocational skills, the training, everything that they need. They even use a nationally mentoring program to make sure that these students stay on track so they can stay and finish school, which is, one of the most important things.
To finish our little newscast today, we wanted to just sum up what we've talked about, viewers.
Yeah, and it's important that any student with a disability who's been referred to the juvenile court for any condition whatsoever, even if they've been appropriately charged or not, they're still entitled to these services under IDEA and the Americans with Disabilities Act. And even though these rights are available, they need to be ensured with more precision, and this ensurety falls upon the hands of not those only in the juvenile justice system, but parents and the community and all school personnel who are going to help change these child's lives.
Yes, thank you, Hailey. We wanted to thank our sponsors today, Laura Lee, Gillespie. Thank you for all that you do for us.
And thank you to the mild moderate cohort 2018 to 2019 of special education at BYU.
Signing out, this is Claire Wright.
This is Hailey Stolworthy.